Today I'm doing a vlog on the Pixar film called Turning Red. So I watched this film a while back here in the middle of doing the production work for Confluence. I was like, I needed a bit of a break. Things were a little slower with everything. I was like, I can take a moment and watch this movie because it's been on my watch list for a while. I'd gotten it off Shopee and I was like, I'm just going to try this. So I watched Turning Red. Now, I had been told that this was a light-hearted movie about maturing, about dealing with your monthly cycle, about all that, and I was like, this movie was not about any of that. I was a little confused by the end of the show because I'm like, I know that maybe we're going for a broad image of life as we mature and we age, but this is not the image that I think we want to be projecting. So basically, the story is about May, who is the perfect daughter for her perfect parents, who run a perfect panda temple in Canada. And when May turns 13, she has hormonal imbalances, and she also turns into a fluffy red panda whenever she gets emotionally excited or distressed. So the rest of the show is about May trying to trap the panda, to trap all the noisy parts of herself that make her parents a little uh, twitchy. But at the end of the day, the message of the movie, I think, is a bit skewed. The reason being is it tries to define our behavior and our personality traits as good or bad. And I don't really think that's a very safe thing to do with humans. And maybe it's just because I tend to look at things as a more broad spectrum person than most people, and also because I spent the last year working with 100 kids of varying personalities and behaviors. And I'm like, you can't really sit there and say, this is bad, this is good, when it comes to certain things. Now, of course, I will wholeheartedly agree there are some things that we can definitely label as very bad to do or very good to do. You know, there are obvious, widely accepted moral bounds on certain things, but this is not a podcast on that, so we're not going there today. But in general, I think it's very dangerous for people to sit there and go, well, because I am loud and noisy, this a bad character trait. Or because I am quiet and demure, this must be a good character trait. And so by having a movie where the whole goal is to trap our pandas or parts of ourselves which are maybe a little more bold, a little more energetic, a little more feisty than the rest of us, so that we can appear a certain way and not really be our full true selves, I think that's a dangerous thing to promote. And some people would argue, well, May kept her panda. But my point is, there were like 5 women with their pandas in the story, and May is the only one who kept her frickin' panda. So there's a lot of internal angst going on. And my point is, that's unhealthy. It's really bad. It's like maybe it's because, I spent my life as a kid in the Midwest where people had a lot of red pandas they tried to keep under wraps and then they would explode and some of us would sit there and go, it would be better if you just were more balanced and you let your red panda just show. I mean, no offense, it's like, it's not gonna cause a end of the world here. I don't know. But in the end, I think the saddest thing is like the character of the mom of May in the show has this giant big panda that is very, very angry. But the thing that is not addressed in the show is the reason that May's mom's panda is so very, very angry is it has been trapped for a very, very long time. And it has a lot of unresolved issues that take back to, May's mom and her mom not being able to relate to one another in a healthy way. And I think it's really sad because in the same way, May and her mom are having trouble relating. And in the end of the day, I just don't think that the turning red left a good message, and let's just trap the pandas for firewomen and make him keep her panda because it's more cute and cuddly. I'm like, it's like saying, well, this person has the same situation or the same personality, but for some reason it's cuter on them than it is on these people. And that's not maybe the healthiest way to look at something. And it's also a little sad to be labeling personalities and behaviors that are not like flat out wrong. I'm like, nothing that May really did in the movie was flat out wrong. I will say, maybe the sketchbook thing with the cashier at the convenience shop. Okay, that was that was not with anyone's consent there, and I think that was a little wrong, okay? Just because, so Anna looks at him like, the poor cashier dude, that was a bad day at the office on that deal. I'm like, he's just sitting there minding his business, selling chocolate bars, and anyway, okay. But still, I'm going, overall, they really didn't do anything terrible in the story. But yet we're all supposed to believe that her panda is somehow bad or terrible or needs to be put under wraps for most of the story. And like, that's not really a good point to make. And then the dad's point near the end of, well, your panda is fun. I'm like, her panda is fun, but her panda is also something that is how she's able to express herself because she has no outlet for her emotions because she's constantly worried about making her parents upset or making her friends upset or bothering someone. And that's a lot of pressure. So, in a way, the panda acts as a pressure valve release. And if we remove the pressure valve release, we end up with, all the aunties and grandma and mom who have a lot of trouble with their interpersonal skills. So I really don't think trapping the panda worked so well for those ladies. And I think that there should have been more done on explaining how instead of behaviors are bad or need to be trapped, we need to look at those behaviors and go, why are they behaving the way that they do? Now, of course, this is easier said than done sometimes, when you're more well rested, when you haven't had, a long day with 20 hoodlums. I'm just saying, there are certain aspects, just like it's much easier to look at things with a zenful approach when you've had sleep, 3 meals, and no chaos for at least a day. I'm like, that is true. So I'm not judging people who are in the midst and throes of battle, as it were. But I am saying that a more holistic approach would have been better for this movie. It's like I finished the movie. I usually save the movies I have and I give them to kiddos I know. But I was like, I'm not giving this movie to any kiddos I know because this movie is not going to teach them how to be the amazing humans they will grow up and be. This movie is about trapping what we fear others might not like about us instead of just growing into ourselves, which is a more healthy and eco-balanced way to live our lives. So in the end, I give Turning Red a total die bomb. I mean, it was really, really pathetic and honest personal opinion. So I was like, that was one show that I will not be, giving on to new kiddos, and I will not be rewatching either because that was just really, really weird. So I finished the show and I was like, I'm just going to go back to editing because this is, you know, depressing. So there we go. That was my break during the Confluence project. One of them.